So for the CSI activity, we'll be focusing on fingerprints and blood splatter. And it's important to tell everyone that the fingerprints and the blood splatter are some of the many forms of evidence people use to catch bad guys. For preschoolers, so about third grade, it would be hard for them to get into all the details of the blood splatter analysis, but it'd be cool for them to observe what is happening, and it'd be also a great idea to ask them whether or not they think that the blood splatter would become bigger when the height is when we increase the height that we're dropping the blood from and stuff like that. But for the fingerprints, you could tell them that no two people in the world have the same fingerprints. They may look similar, but there's a lot of different details in fingerprints that are very different. And for everyone, not just for the preschoolers and the third graders, it's important to tell them that there are 3 different types of fingerprints. There's the loops, the whorls, and the arches. And these are some key features in every fingerprint. For 4th graders to about 6th grade, they'll be able to form their own hypothesis on the blood splatter analysis. And you could ask them how they think it would help to solve crimes. And you could also ask them the same thing about the various heights and what they think the blood splatter would look like. And at this point, they could start taking the diameters of each drop of blood. For the fingerprint part, you could have them examine their fingers and tell them that the ridges on their fingerprint is the part that picks up ink and that allows the image to show up on a paper. For middle schoolers, they should be able to make a mathematical relationship between the blood splatter and the height from where it came from. So at this point, they could start taking the diameters of each of the 5 droplets of blood on the paper and take the average. And it'd be really cool if we had a separate paper that has unmarked droplets of blood, and they could, from their results, they could try to find out where the height from where the blood came from. And at this point, we could take a pipette and start squirting it at an angle so they could see how, even if it's at an angle, they could see the direction that the blood splatter came from. For high schoolers, college kids, and all the adults, you could have a more detailed conversation with them about the blood splatter analysis. Obviously, blood splatter can be created by a variety of different ways. So it's also important to tell them that it's not just little droplets of blood, that the size, the amount, the force of impact, and the texture of the surface that the blood landed on all play key roles in blood splatter analysis. And at this point, they have an understanding of projectiles, so they'll be able to find the angle from where the blood splatter came from. And for that, we use this equation, which is the angle of impact equals arc sine of the stain width over the stain length. And they'll be able to realize that the greater the difference between the stain width and the stain length, the sharper the angle. And it's really cool because then you could talk to them about luminol, which is a liquid used by the CSI to find blood splatter even when it's been cleaned up, because the luminol reacts to the hemoglobin in blood, and when used with a black light, it gives off a really cool luminescent glow.